Welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us. My name is Nev. I'm a library aide here with San Mateo County Libraries. I'm excited to be here tonight to welcome VC Tang, author of the cookbook memoir, Come Eat, Grandma. Before we begin this evening's cook-along, I just wanted to mention next month's author talk on June 13th at 7 p.m. We will welcome Mike Chen to celebrate his newest book, Vampire Weekend, through a conversation with author Annalee Newitz. For tonight, your microphone and video will be turned off, but please feel free to use the chat or submit your questions in the Zoom Q&A. For those who'd like to access the live closed captions for this event, click on CC and then show subtitle. Also, please note that this cook-along will be recorded and uploaded to youtube.com/San Mateo County Lib. So you can always reference it, again, if you'd like to practice this recipe in the future. And now San Mateo County Libraries is thrilled to introduce VC Tang. VC Tang began helping out in the kitchen since she could mix her first pancake batter. For her, cooking is a way to connect and share stories while nourishing herself and others. She's an author, speaker, and consultant. She has 2 decades of experience developing educational and professional development programs for youth and adults rooted in self-discovery, leadership, and traditional practices in modern times. She works with individuals, organizations, schools, entrepreneurs, and artists in the US and Thailand, and is driven by a vision for healthy and vibrant lifestyles and livelihoods. Her nuanced approach comes from being mentored by teachers in Asian arts all her life. She spent over 30 years immersed in community, ritual and performing arts at the Berkeley Thai Buddhist Temple, and currently trains in applying Tai Chi Chuan, Zen, and Taoist principles in daily life. In 2022, she published her first cookbook memoir, Come Eat, Grandma, Recipes and Stories of Thai Home Cooking. And the title, Come Eat, Grandma, that's a very important direct address, comma. It's an invitation, not cannibalism. This book aims to pass on wisdom anyone hungry for food and stories as her elders have generously fed her. Born and raised in San Francisco, VC enjoys pop music, Star Trek, and epic movies. And without further ado, here's VC Tang. Take it away.
Oh, thank you. Sawadee ka, everyone. It's my honor to present to you one of the recipes from my book and to do it in my home. Literally in my home, but also my home of San Mateo County. And so welcome everyone, and thank you for devoting your Thursday evening to cooking together, whether or not you are cooking along or you are watching and then hopefully cooking this recipe later. So to start off, I'll get off with some, I'll do some like kind of starter activities first, and then while things are simmering, I'll do a reading from the short stories in my book. It's a cookbook memoir. So in addition to having Thai home recipes, I also included stories of what it was like to grow up so engrossed within the local Thai community here in the Bay Area, and also of my family travels visiting relatives in Thailand. So first off, what I've already done is I put on a pot of rice, if you haven't already done so. This soup pairs with rice. And I've already started to heat up my chicken stock. So I made some chicken stock earlier, and I just got a chicken back from the grocer. What I will also do, so here's it's a little fun trick, is so the chicken stock, if at the end of the day you didn't have chicken stock, I don't recommend using any bouillon because it might have other seasonings. What's best for this soup is just a chicken bone, a chicken stock that you made from a plain bone, no other seasonings involved. It's very plain. If you didn't have the time to do that, then I would just say just go with plain water, because eventually you'll be cooking chicken meat in it, and you'll get enough of it. You'll get enough of the flavor, but chicken stock adds just a little subtle depth and dimension to the soup. The other thing that I learned is to add, or you can do this completely, your whole stock, if you would like to splurge on clear coconut water. I like to do a mix, but I think it's really more for the aroma, and it'll kind of cut that meatiness, the pure meatiness smell of the chicken. So I'm just gonna add some coconut water into my chicken stock. This coconut water has a pink color, but I really love this brand, and it's like kind of very fresh coconut milk. And I just love the smell of coconut water in my stock. It's kind of just adding, for me, it's aroma. I'm sure there are, electrolyte benefits to drinking coconut water, and that's why people do it. But for me, it's just to be able to have that smell in my kitchen. So while that's heating up, we're going to bring it to kind of a soft simmer. What I have are the herbs, and this is really the core identity of tom yum. And tom yum is a very classic Southeast Asian soup. Many of you have probably enjoyed this at a restaurant. And the two main things that you really can't do without, it's really hard to sub these things, but they are pretty available in the Bay Area, is lemongrass. And you get these in stalks. And because I keep them frozen in my freezer, I don't have it in stock form now, but the way you peel them is you cut off the ends, and I take off the first 2 layers, and then I use what's inside, and then I cut them into, these 1 or 2 inch lengths, as you see here. And then what's really fun with a really distinct, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with lemongrass smell, whether it's in your beauty products, interestingly enough, or in food you eat. I think a lot of Vietnamese cooking, it uses a lot of lemongrass. So the next herb is these kaffir lime leaves. In Thai, they're called makut. And I think people are taking to calling them that. I feel like kaffir lime leaves also has an offensive term in South Africa. So people are taking to calling it by its Thai name, makut. So makut leaves or lime leaves. And my favorite part about these leaves, I'll show you here, is so they come connected on the stem, similar to many citrus leaves. And they naturally fold in half. There's a way that they just kind of fold in half. And you want to de-stem them by kind of pulling down this zipper. So when you fold them in half, you just pull and it de-stems the leaf, if you kind of see it there. And I just pull like a zipper and it kind of unzips the leaf for you. And I tear them in half. And so I see my soup starting to steam. I'll put this all in together so you can kind of see it going in the pot. But I'm going to de-stem all of my lime leaves. So basically unzip all my herbal leaves. I think there was a question about whether or not I've ever used dried. So the question is I don't. I've never used dry herbs, and that's also because I freeze them. So also because I don't think the dried version is readily available. I've never seen these available dry, or maybe it's just in my household or how my community cooks is we've never used dried versions. So my answer to do I use dried is no. And how do I get around it when these are not always available? They're kind of available seasonally, kind of same with lemongrass. The farmer's market might not have it every week. So I freeze them, and they freeze quite well. So now my soup is boiling too violently. I'm going to turn down my heat and let it calm down a bit. But meanwhile, I'm still kind of unzipping my leaves. I hand tear them. These are kind of like the Southeast Asian bay leaf. If you kind of want to have a comparison of what they're used for, is they are added to soups and curries primarily. And because they're not as readily available, you might not have seen them added in restaurant curries, but I would say most Thai curries that I have at home have these lime leaves in them. Thai basil, which is very commonly added to curries, is more prevalent and more readily available, so you'll definitely see that, but this is a little harder to come by. They do grow the trees grow quite well. So if you happen to have a Southeast Asian friend who has a lime leaf tree, the leaves, they're pretty prolific and give you a good ongoing supply every season. So I know that you kind of need an in to have a friend with a lime leaf tree, but I had an in. I had a friend with a lime leaf tree. He lived in San Jose, moved to Sacramento, but before he moved, he gave me a really great cutting that I gave to my mom, and she, lovingly takes care of her lime leaf tree in her backyard in Daly City. And Daly City is a rough place to grow herbs, I will tell you. It is so foggy, and anybody south of the San Bruno fog line will probably have better luck if you want to attempt and maybe like Amazon or Google search where to buy your own lime leaf tree. And if you do want to cook a lot of Thai or Southeast Asian cooking, I think it's a great investment to have a lime leaf tree. And I'm almost done here. And I'm pretty generous with the amount of leaves. You don't just put like one or two in, you put quite a few for the fragrance. So I'm just gonna wrap up unzipping my leaves here. So they're all torn up. I'm gonna save my chili pepper for later. But now that my stock is at a more gentle simmer, see, it's kind of pink, but it smells great. So I'm just gonna put in my lemongrass. Oops, I don't want to splatter too much, so I'm gonna do this. So the herbs for this soup go in first because the biggest characteristic of the soup actually probably isn't the flavor, it's probably the aroma. That very few dishes can I say that about, is that the aroma leads. So right now I can already smell some of the coconut hitting my nose. And so once this gets going, the house will kind of start to smell like lemongrass and lime leaves, which is my favorite part. So while that's happening, you actually leave it alone. And that comes in a story that I'm about to read you, but it's a perfect time to read a story because you're just waiting for the herbs to simmer. I'll just give them a little dunk, just kind of stir them around in the pot. Okay, so I'm going to read a story from my book that does mention making tom yum with my family, but it's also about a whole family eating extravaganza that I had about, I want to say, almost 5 or 6 years ago. And this is one of the final stories in my book. It's called New Year's Feast. And the illustrator who worked on my book, she did an amazing job. Her name is Emily Kim. She's Thai Korean, but I gave her a family photo of what we literally ate that day, and she was able to translate that into this nostalgic, kind of very sophisticated comic strip looking spread. That this is, pretty much on point with the kind of spread that my family puts together especially when I go, because I'm the only one in the US and I go back to visit them. It makes it a special occasion. So this story is called New Year's Feast. I'm an only child, and so are all my cousins. My mom is one of 9, so I often ask her in more ways than one, what's it like? Who are you closest to? What did you fight over? Who got into the most trouble? I was fascinated by big families. I got tastes and glimpses from the Thai temple and family holiday meals, but I didn't know about the day-to-day inner workings of siblinghood. My mom pauses over my questions about the most ordinary things: siblings, her parents, growing up. Nothing mysterious except to me. I don't know who I was closest to. Everyone ate together every day. Everybody was all over the place and always around. In 2017, I was in Thailand for the family's New Year's gathering. 4 siblings and their spouses met at my Aunt Nanut's home for the first time. As the sole international visitor of the family, my relatives believed I brought an appetite as long as the distance I traveled. You came so far, I brought you this, and my job was to eat it and like it. As if by living an ocean away, I was deprived of something they felt responsible for giving me, and as if feeding it to me would accomplish that. My cousin and Panay picked me up at the mall, the best landmark to meet halfway to shorten driving distances in Bangkok. When I got in the car, she said we're stopping for breakfast at a pork leg stew spot on the way, just to try it out. She got me my own plate while she shared hers with everyone else. As we finished, Panay instructed us, don't tell them we already ate. My uncle Naku walked into the house just after we got there. What's there to eat? I've been driving all morning and I haven't eaten yet. My cousin eyed me, our stomachs full of stew, and off we went to a nearby riverside temple for its weekend food stands. Naku got me pad thai with the accompanying crispy mussel pancake, halmok, a fish curry pocket in a banana leaf, and a few bites from his plate which were too spicy for me. Then my other aunt called me over to order beef noodle soup to make sure it had all the fixins I like. Ordering noodle soup is like knowing a person's favorite Starbucks drink. Instead of a venti with soy milk, you'd have to know wide noodles, extra tendons, no blood cubes. It was a take-home order for later, she said. By the time we got back home, it was barely noon and I had already eaten 3 full meals. My youngest uncle came later in the afternoon after his 9-hour drive. He stopped to get me a durian and shopped for all the fresh seafood for our big dinner. He was so proud of his tough to find, so-so quality durian purchased at the absolute worst time of year. With all 10 of us there, grocery bags were everywhere, enough to fill the kitchen counters and long dining table. We found out that while we were eating brunch at the temple, Nanut, the hostess, was making her vendor rounds to buy her approved selection of snacks and desserts. She was the foodie of the family, and whenever she found a good bite, nothing could stop her from sharing it with us. Gin len len, play food. There were 2 kitchens, the Western one with the fridge, electric stove, and cupboards, and the Thai one with gas burners, propane tank, dish rack, big sink, and screened windows and a back door for ventilation while stir frying. It was likely my 15th trip to Thailand, and by this time I understood the rhythm of family cooking. My first task was to play spotter for my aunt as she carved the durian her husband brought, which we did seated on the floor of the Western kitchen, because the purpose of countertops was to keep all grocery bags organized. My uncle, awake from his post-drive nap, walked by. Try it, gulp. It's not ripe, not in season, but I found it. Since we were already seated down there, a trio of us began slicing veggies for dinner. Nanut would walk by. Gulp, don't forget your noodles. Another uncle, gulp, you need to try these. My cousin chuckled, feeling sorry for me and patting me on my shoulder. Good luck, Nanong. Are you sure you're gonna make it? I moved over to the Thai kitchen to watch Banoi make tom yum. The trick to a good tom yum is that the lemongrass and kaffir lime leaves need to simmer in the stock by themselves for a long time before adding anything else. So we stood there chatting for a good while until we could smell the soup. Peeling and prepping the jumbo river prawns, making dips and sauces. Outside, my cousin chatted with my uncles as they grilled dozens more river prawns and squid over wood charcoals. This old-fashioned ceramic stove was the third kitchen, the kind of stove they used growing up. I'm going to get the takeout. Nanut got a massive order of MK's Chinese roast duck over spinach noodles, a family favorite side order when we went out for hot pot. She came back with a box of Vietnamese chicken skewers and lettuce wraps, her daughter's favorite. Her daughter, however, was in Seattle. That day was absent of the full contingent of siblings and their respective households. But family members who weren't there needed to eat too. My mom called her siblings daily while I was there, telling them all the fruits and desserts she missed most. Coconut pandan jellies, mangosteens, rambutan, longans, durian, and any dessert that was swimming in coconut milk, hot or cold. They would buy it all, and I'd have to eat it on her behalf. The full spread came together on the floor of the outdoor patio, everyone kneeling and crouching with a plate of something to place in the center of the mats. The dinner table inside was elegant, cut, carved, and polished, a single slab of wood with a reddish hue, and it served as a fruit and snack station. When the family got together, we ate on the floor, which explained my family's obsession with mopping. In that spacious house, there were enough bedrooms and bathrooms for cousins and couples to have their own. After all of dinner was cleared and cleaned, the women gathered blankets and sleeping pads and laid them out across the master bedroom floor for a slumber party, to conserve air conditioning, of course. I don't even know where the uncles slept that night. I had stayed at each of my aunts and uncles' homes across many trips over the years, but when everyone got together, like on that day, I realized this is what my mom meant. The siblings were doing what they had always done, what they were used to, and all they knew day in and day out as kids. Everybody all over the place and everyone all around. Okay. So with that, I can now already smell the herbs in my kitchen. If you're cooking, I hope you might be able to smell the herbs too. But I love that, you know, that's kind of like the gauge. We don't really need to put a ton of numbers and time on it. I think that actually like trains out our intuitive senses, you know, like, you know, when it's ready when you can smell it. So next we'll put in the other aromatics. So I'm going to chop up a shallot. Gently toss the shallot into my compost. And shallots are kind of sneaky. They're a little slippery, so I always have to be careful. I've definitely cut myself slicing a shallot. So if I am like not looking up at you, there's a safety reason for that. You know, it's like kind of like texting and not texting and driving at the same time. No looking up at your Zoom screen while slicing. I'm just going to peel these. And for these, you could do it in strips, you can dice it. It's really not going to matter too much in the end because they end up looking pretty translucent. They cook for quite a long time, so they end up looking pretty translucent. So I kind of do a strippy chop. Again, it really doesn't matter. Hopefully they're all the same size so that at least they cook at the same rate. But here, the aesthetics of your shallot are not a huge deal. Okay. And for the garlic, pretty simple, no chopping, but they do need to be peeled and smashed. And they go in smashed.
So VC, there's a question from our viewers. Is it with the kaffir leaves, from the kaffir lime leaves, would it be the same as using the leaves from the lime trees?
I have actually never tried that, but I would be curious. I would say, you know, because it's so much about the aroma, if somebody's lime leaves are pretty aromatic, I would say try it. Probably the more hardy or thick leaves. I think the difference when I've seen like other citrus versus these leaves is that the leaves are quite thick because then they can kind of like take a beating in a stew pot and they won't completely disintegrate. And I think that's pretty much the difference in appearance and oh my gosh, I should have showed you the chopped veggies, but I would be willing to try it. I'm pretty sure the flavor will not be as
fragrant, right?
Yeah, fragrant. But people are welcome to try it out. You know, the other thing that might work if the zest is not too bitter. So the zest might work as well. And that might be something that you add because, you know, you don't want zest to sit in a soup a long time. So if people are subbing with zest, they might want to do that at the end, along with we add the lime juice at the end too. So I would just imagine adding a citrus peel early on might add a little bitterness. So I would do that later. Okay. So I've smashed my garlic and I've chopped up my shallot. So I'm going to add that into the soup. So the soup is it's actually kind of backwards in terms of soup procedure. The proteins get added last or kind of out of order. So I've added those herbs and I I have my proteins ready. So I've already pre-cut chicken thigh, boneless, skinless chicken thighs into bite-sized pieces. Again, they don't have to be beautiful or uniform, just whatever you feel comfortable chewing on and are bite-sized. So that's something I am going to add now, just because, you know, chicken, I want both chicken and shrimp I want to be fully cooked, but shrimp tends to get tough if you cook it too long. So I'll just do the chicken now. So the chicken's going in. And then with that, I'm going to turn the heat up just a little. So I was just below medium, and I'm probably approaching medium at this point. And you can kind of see it as it heats up. And next are the veggies. And in my recipe, I said 1 tomato to kind of give you a sense of quantity, but depending on the appearance you prefer, a Roma tomato cut up into diced cubes is fine. Today, just because I was able to find this at the grocery store, I got grape tomatoes. And with grape tomatoes, they just need a washing, and you can kind of dunk them in, and they'll burst from the heat, which is kind of fun. But either works, you know, we're very unkind to the veggies in this soup because they end up disintegrating pretty deeply. So the shallots become unrecognizable. The tomatoes actually almost kind of act as like color flare plus almost a thickener. If the tomatoes completely lose shape, that's fine. But like I said, we're very unkind to the veggies in this recipe. And tomatoes, I think, is as far as Thai families go, I think it's like by preference. I know some people don't do it. I do it primarily for color. If you want some sort of red feature, you can try bell pepper, but I'm not too keen on the flavor of bell pepper in this soup. So I think families, or, you know, and the other thing too is, as a Thai person, I'm kind of a lightweight when it comes to spicy food. I used to be much more adventurous, like say when I was a teenager in my 20s, but I am not that young anymore, and I would like to save myself from ulcers. So that is to say that in Thailand, the red would come from many, many chili peppers, and that is something that I definitely do not do. So that's why I have gone the tomato route. And this is by preference. You know, I showed one of my aunts my cookbook, and she's like, "Why do you put tomatoes?" And I said, "For color." She was like, "Okay." I don't know. That to me told me that she did not put tomatoes in her tom yum. The other thing too is the soup is very welcoming to any variety of mushrooms. My preferred mushroom for this soup is oyster. I think that was omitted in the list that you received, but again, it's actually very welcoming. Like if you just happen to have, you know, the standard mushroom in your fridge, totally works fine. Shimeji mushrooms and shiitakes should also work. I would put shiitakes last on that list just because shiitakes have quite a bit of fragrance and flavor. Definitely not the dried shiitakes, but like if you had fresh shiitakes, that would be acceptable to put in to add like a little texture to your soup. But I really enjoy putting oyster because of their look. They just look kind of elegant, and you know, the soup kind of has this like old hand, like I hand pulled my leaves. So oyster mushroom is also like it's like a veggie that you can, I'll show you on the cam. It's a veggie that you can kind of pull apart, and it doesn't look like so precisely cut up by a knife. And that's really my only reason. So if you have like other mushrooms, shimejis can just go in as is because they're so tiny. But this it just looks fun because you know, like hand tearing vegetables is fun. So that's the only reason I choose oyster. There are these like button mushrooms might work too. Like if you get button mushrooms in a can, I think my mom has done that. But we prefer fresh. I really love our choice of mushroom vendors at farmers markets in the Bay Area. So that's actually one of my favorite vendors to go to when I go to a farmer's market. You could just kind of like go to town about like which mushroom of the week looks prettiest, and then just choose based on that alone. And in Thailand,
would mushrooms actually be a good alternative for those who are going the route of vegetarian?
right, yeah, I was about to say that. So you can increase your quantity of mushrooms. Tofu is always another, it's like that's like the standard protein sub. But I was gonna say you can have a mushroom medley in your tom yum if the flavor isn't like so overpowering. That might be a fun tom yum. But I would say if you wanted to do a veggie version, I would do a mix of tofu and tom yum just because it's kind of more fun to have like a mix of textures in the soup.
And would you recommend the soft types of tofu, not the firm, right?
Oh, I would not silken. It'll just completely disintegrate in the soup. So I would actually go standard firmness or actually do firm because it's gonna. I don't want the tofu to come apart in the soup.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah. Okay, so the mushrooms are in. Chicken should be cooked by now. Mushrooms and tomatoes are in. So I have some shrimp deveined, peeled. This isn't very attractive. It's just a few shrimp, however many shrimp you enjoy. Tom yum goong is like the full name of this dish. Tom yum is the name of the soup, but it's so often served with shrimp that it kind of goes together. Tom yum goong. If any of you are martial arts fans, Tony Jaa's breakout film. Tony Jaa is a famous Thai kickboxer, stunt movie man. So his first movie, I don't know, they translated into something super generic, like The Thai Warrior or something. But the name of his movie had no other, like it was called Tom Yum Goong. And the movie had no reference to the soup. It was just the name of the movie. And it had nothing to do with anything in the plot. And I just found that funny that everybody would just identify with the name of a soup so well that they wouldn't question why the name of the movie would be that. But I guess in the international market, it would just not work to name a martial arts movie Tom Yum Goong and then translate it as like spicy sour soup with shrimp, and it just wouldn't work. Okay, so I'll let the shrimp cook. And next we'll do, so the seasonings, even though it's incredibly fragrant right now, the flavor is probably very bland. It'll probably only taste like chicken stock with a little note of coconut. So this is kind of the most treacherous ingredient, this chili pepper right here. And if you want to use gloves, please do so, because touching seeds of this is not fun if you get it anywhere on your face. So I'm very careful with this. It's kind of like doing like surgery, I think. But I'll just cut a sliver so that the seeds come out, but that not all of them will like kind of come bursting out. And this is how much of a stickler I am about your spiciness level. I think the size of pot that I have about 1.25 liters of water in my pot. It kind of boiled down. I started with 1.5 liters and then it probably boiled down. And with that, I feel safe doing 1. And again, I said I'm a lightweight. So if you want to be adventurous and go for 2 or 3, this is a pretty small chili pepper, which means it packs a bigger punch. Please feel free. But the trick I use if I know a certain batch of chili peppers is pretty strong is I have this tea strainer, and I put the chili in there so that I could take it out only after 5 minutes. I'm not going to do that tonight, but if again you are also a spicy lightweight like me, you can use this trick: is get a little tea strainer and put your chili in there so you can bring it out so that it just doesn't saturate your soup. But I'm okay. I put a little sliver so that some of the seeds will come out, but they all won't like kind of go swimming away in the soup. And that's enough for me. That's how much I've gauged that. So in we go. You see it's going in. Ah, okay. And so that's the first seasoning, is the chili pepper, and just let him have fun in there. The 2 seasoning flavors of this soup will be fish sauce. Tiparot is the Thai brand. And you know, if I was going to be country agnostic, you know, fish sauce aficionados, the way you tell the good quality of a fish sauce is you hold it up to the light, and it should have a more amber reddish hue. It should not let in a lot of light. It should have an amber reddish hue. Tiparot is probably like above mid-grade. There are others that when you hold it up to the light, they're really light brown, probably basically like water. The latest, after I finish this bottle, I'm going to try this new brand called Red Boat. It's not that new, but it's available more readily now, but it's like the premium. And then Red Boat has designated new grades of fish sauce. So if you want to be like a fish sauce connoisseur, that's I'm excited to try Red Boat. But my family has always used the Thai brand Tiparot. My soup is gently bubbling, which I like. And I have a bunch, whenever I cook, I just have like a bunch of spoons at my side for tasting. And the hardest thing about writing a cookbook of family recipes was getting the quantities, because if any of you have cooked with you know, whoever in your household was responsible for cooking, I mean, I'm sure if it was anything in the household, they're like, then you just like put a glug in and there you go. And don't know how much how much is a glug? I don't know. So I literally stood next to my mom, and she was actually very disciplined about writing the quantities down, but not every soup is made equal, even, you know, week by week. So I just have a spoon on me and I just go one at a time. So what I'm going to start with is like one spoon at a time. Once I'm confident my shrimp is cooked, then we'll do the tasting. But I'm just going to go one spoon of fish sauce for now. And I'm already sure I'm going to need more. But like I said, I start with the base and then I work my way up. Then the other seasoning, you can do this with many other sweeteners. My preferred sweetener is coconut sugar. And I prefer it to come in a little tub like this, rather than it comes in like this rock candy form and in little stones. And it's just hard to get from that to something that I could work with, because then at that point you have a hammer and you're like breaking it down, and that's just too much for me. So I like it in this form, and I break it out with the fork. So it's kind of like working with raw honey. And I also like this. So if you have raw honey, that's a great alternative. I just can't really compare the level of sweetness with the quantity. So same thing, I go about a spoonful at a time. And you're welcome to use granulated sugar. I would go in teaspoons in that case, because granulated sugars kind of have a more pointy sweetness to them. Than this is kind of dull, and you need more, you know, a little of the granulated sugar can go a long way. But here, I think you need to be a little more generous with how much you put in. So I'm going to let that dissolve and just kind of wait until I'm confident that all of my proteins are cooked. I'm pretty sure they're cooked now, but you know, I just want to be safe.
And VC, one of our viewers asked, so the different fish sauces, they're from the many different countries, they all have different flavor profiles, right? Because there's the Filipino fish sauce and there's the
right. Yeah. The fish sauce that I'm talking about would be called anchovy extract. So we're not talking about like fermented fish sauces, which is like a whole nother class. Yes. But yeah, you want to look for something that is anchovy extract if you look at the ingredients, because like, yeah, I know all the other kinds of fish sauces. There's like pickled mudfish, and it's like a very thick, opaque sauce, and we're going for something that is very liquidy, and you know, you would look at the grade of it by holding it up to the light and seeing what color it is. There's a lot of fish sauces out there, I know. And then actually, if you are vegetarian, I forgot to say, here are a couple alternatives that work just as well. You want a thin soy sauce. So unfortunately not the Japanese or Chinese soy sauces, but there's a Thai brand of soy sauce. Anything by Healthy Boy will work. They have this mushroom kind, they have like plain kind, but anything that's Healthy Boy thin soy sauce. Here, is this also Healthy Boy? This is, yeah, see, this is thin soy sauce, Healthy Boy brand. So I have both of those. There's also another brand, I think that's called Golden Mountain. But again, you want it to look, you want it to almost look like the liquidity. I don't know if that's the word, but like the liquid should look like this. It shouldn't be, let's see if I have, I know now you're getting like a tour of my sauce cabinet. So I don't use, like, here's a tamari, and you can kind of see like tamari is like so thick and dark. And when you pour it out, it kind of pours out slow. This pours out like it's almost like it's water, even though the color is different. So there's just a different texture and taste profile. So I would recommend a very thin soy sauce. Healthy Boy brand is my preferred. There's also Golden Mountain. So those are the soys for any vegetarians who don't want to use fish sauce. And they work just, I use them interchangeably. I know it can kind of, those sauce aisles are really overwhelming in the Asian market. It's like, whoa. So now this is boiling, and I'm gonna do a taste test. There's
See, when you said to look at the fish sauce, the coloring, what's the shelf life for these fish sauces?
Oh, they go a long time.
Right. If it turns very dark, would you recommend continuing to use it?
I know
Because
the bottom will be very potent.
Yes.
I would just go by what the expiration date on the back said.
Okay.
You know, I mean, I use it so frequently that I never make it to the expiration date. But if you are not using it frequently, I could see how that could be an issue. But the bottom, I thought, yes, the bottom, you know, kind of have the sediment settles, and the bottom becomes very potent. Okay. I'm just checking my shrimp right now. Chicken is definitely cooked, and shrimp also looks cooked, so I'm gonna taste it. I know I'm gonna adjust the seasonings, but as my mom taught me to cook, like doing taste tests is always like our favorite part. So actually, it's pretty sweet, but not sweet enough. Definitely not salty enough. So right now, I showed you that I put in 1 spoon of fish sauce, and I'm just using like a regular dinner spoon at this point, so this size. And so I'm gonna actually put in 2 more of fish sauce. Oh dear, that is gonna smell. So I am new to this electric stove, and I'm not a huge fan, but I can make do with it. It's fine. Because when things splatter, then they just kind of sizzle. Okay, so I added extra fish sauce. I am gonna add a little more sugar. And this is how I grew up doing my measurements. I mean, my cookbook does have measurements, and you're welcome to follow them. And, you know, I tested them, but at the same time, like I said, every soup isn't the same. Depends on how much, you know, like maybe you put more mushrooms in one day, or maybe there was just a different ratio of chicken stock to coconut water, and, you know, there you go. So I'm just gonna add another spoonful of sugar. And something else that I think is taught quite often among Thai households is every house is different. Like every house has their own preference. So my mother our family, I can tell her and her siblings have quite the sweet tooth when it comes to how they flavor their food. And because I grew up with many Thai households and communities, I deviated from my biological families. I was exposed to many different Thai households and Thai restaurants, frankly, and then Thai travel. So I veered a little bit away from what my mom taught me. And that's all to say, you know, it's like you get to pick, you know, you get to pick what your balance of flavors is. So I'm just going to stir this up again. And that's why it was always my favorite. It was like okay, it's like you decide when it's done. And the thing is actually we're only doing the secondary flavors right now, because the final flavor is this lime. That's the key leading sour flavor, but we have to do that off heat. Because you don't want to, when you cook, again, with the citrus, when you heat it and it continues to heat, the flavor of it changes. So we want to do it off heat. So it's sweet enough for me. It is not salty enough for me. So we're up to 3 now. I'm gonna go 4. I might go 5. Like a game. It's like a little bet. We did a lot of betting around food in my household, like how many things can people eat, or how much is it gonna take for, that, or like, a common game, because fruit is so plentiful in Asia, or at least in Asian families. I just felt like when I was a kid, somebody was always feeding me fruit. It's just like endless. Is we would always kind of guess that there was the durian in my story. So before you open the durian, it's ceremonial to just, before you even open it, it's like this very like asymmetrical shape. It's not like a watermelon. It has lumps and it has spikes and it's very smelly. It's the king of fruits. But it's always customary before you open it for everybody to go around and guess how many seeds it has, and to see how like familiar you are with durian to count how many seeds are in the whole fruit. So I added 1 more of fish sauce. We're up to 4 now.
I can already tell that the aroma must be so amazing in your kitchen right now.
I know, it's so sad. I mean, that's the unfortunate part of cooking shows, is you can't ever smell what you're watching being made. So I'm gonna go 5. This is like some sort of game show. It's like, how far can I push it? And that I think is like the key to cooking many cuisines, is how far can you push it, but you don't want to completely fall off the edge. Like, I don't want to like overdo it and this thing is like a salt pot.
And would you say the saltiness is the leading flavor right now?
No, it's gonna be sour, so that'll be the lime at the end.
All right.
But this part I'm doing while it's still cooking and can blend.
Okay. And also, one of our viewers had a good question. They've had versions of tom yum where they say they believe it's ginger in there, or is it the galangal?
The galangal. Okay, so the jury's out on this one, but to me, how I delineate what's tom yum and what's tom kha.
Okay.
Okay, and then there's also different grades of tom yum. Okay, so this is a very advanced group. So tom yum, I think if you're going to go, this is in my book, I call it tom yum nam sai, which is tom yum clear broth. So this is the most basic version, like pure, like unadulterated version. So the base of this version is, as I said before, the lemongrass and the leaves. So let's just keep that as like the base. If you add, I've never had, ka, which is the galangal root, the very big galangal root. It's kind of akin to ginger, but it's like in its own class. It's kind of like ginger and like jicama had a baby, and has this own like profile to it. So I personally don't consider it tom yum if it has galangal in it. However, in the realm, if we're still in the realm of tom yum, there's tom yum nam sai, clear broth, and there's tom yum nam khon, which is a condensed broth. And so some tom yums can be made with coconut milk, like the white opaque coconut milk. If you want, it's probably translated best as creamy tom yum. So that's one variation. So then I can see how, if people are accustomed to a restaurant serving them creamy tom yum, you're just one step away from it being tom kha kai, or tom kha whatever. Tom kha kai is chicken. So tom kha is a coconut-based broth. Everything is the same, but you add the galangal, and then you call it tom kha. But tom kha to me is always the creamy broth with galangal. And so that's what makes it that and not tom yum to me. I wish I had a diagram. There's probably like a diagram that could be made. Like
that was a pretty good explanation.
And tom yum are different. So yum, I can break down the words for you too. Everybody's gonna get a Thai lesson tonight. Tom is to boil. So usually soups are called boiled something, a boiled whatever. And so yum, to us, it means delicious. But yum in Thai, it refers to a certain particular kind of sauce that involves all the things that we've already put in. Coconut sugar, fish sauce, lime, and chili. So to take that sauce and to boil it is to be called tom yum. So whenever there is that sauce is more of like a dressing, a salad dressing. So it's also a verb. If we were to make a salad with these flavorings in it, yum becomes a verb, like, oh, I'm gonna yum a steak. I'm going to yum some squid is how it's used. So you're gonna kind of get this whole like vocabulary of Thai kitchen words. Let's see. I'm gonna see. And as you know, like we're talking and everything, like that's what I meant when I read my story. And my aunt and I were just chatting, and you just like chat, add some stuff, taste, chat some more, add some stuff, taste. So that's the beauty of Tom Yum. It's not too high maintenance. Okay, we're gonna go for the gold tonight. We're gonna go 6 of these spoons. This spoon is slightly smaller than the official tablespoon, which is probably why we're going so high up in numbers. But the reason I'm not using an actual tablespoon is because my measuring spoons are all connected, and I would just like jiggle all these spoons at you every time I had to do seasonings. Okay, I think that's a winner. 6. You just kind of know. You know. You just use your instincts. So with that, heat off. I'm gonna scoot it over. But in the meantime, we're gonna. This is our leading flavor. So we actually haven't added the star of the show yet. So I'm going to roll. Oh, here. Kitchen cam. Not hurt myself with all my little instruments. So I like to roll my limes first to get the juices flowing before I cut it open. Just remember to breathe as you're rolling a lime. You know, it's very easy to just hold your breath, but just keep breathing. Okay, and so when it starts to soften up, it'll be easier to get the juice out. And I'm gonna let the soup cool down because I don't want the juices to cook. So I'm going to also do something else before I start squeezing the lime in. And naturally, there's something you cannot prevent when you add lime to soup. Like there's a standard Western chicken soup that I add lemon to, is whenever you add a citrus to a soup, it's going to cloud the broth. So cloudy broth is a great, it looks great in Tom Yum. It's not a turn off visually to have a cloudy broth for Tom Yum. So what we're going to do is we're going to garnish. So a classic Thai soup garnish, 2 things, scallion, green onion, and cilantro. So I've already pre-washed these. I'm just going to tear off the stems of my cilantro. And I know these days people are, you kind of have to be aware. I think people are more hip to the fact that genetically some people will taste cilantro as soap. So I always ask dinner guests, especially if I have raw cilantro around and anything about, I'm like, do you taste cilantro as soap? So I don't put it in their food. So I just want to be aware of that. I was not aware of that. And what's kind of sad is one of my Thai temple brothers, not my actual, I'm an only child, my Thai temple siblings, he is one of those people, and he grew up around Thai folks that had cilantro and everything, poor guy. He does taste cilantro as soap. So I just do a rough chop of this, and this is just a very, very, I would have to think pretty hard to think of a Thai soup that I've eaten that was not topped with cilantro and scallion. So cilantro and scallion is always in my fridge. So I put it on this soup, naturally, any kind of noodle soup. So there's like a Thai version of pho, which has like a 5-spice element to it, like Chinese 5-spice element to it. The recipe is also in my book. That also has cilantro and scallion. I put it on my rice porridge. I actually have quite a number of soups in my book. I really love soup. I think it's like the most nourishing thing you can eat. It's so nutritious. The broth like does wonders for blood and circulation. And, you know, Chinese medicine is always touting the benefits of different kinds of soups and herbs. So I think it's the best way to get nutrients into your body. So I also do a rough chop of the scallions. It doesn't matter if it's the bottom or the top. It all goes in all mixed anyway. I know some cuisines, it's really important to separate the white part of the scallion with the top, but this is all gets mixed in. to me, it's another kind of like, the soup has its own like very like warm fragrance as of this point, and adding this garnish raw on top to the bowl directly kind of adds a little freshness to the smell. I'm just gonna clear up. Big lesson if you're just like home cooking or cooking anywhere, clean as you go. And the mess will not be as big when you're all full and don't really want to clean your kitchen afterwards. So I clean as I go. It's a good work lesson too, if you make messes in your work life, and clean as you go. Don't leave the mess for the end. All right. Okay. So it is time for the lime. I think my stovetop is cooled down a little bit, that it will be okay to bring this back. Soup is kind of dark in color just because of the color of my stove and the color of the coconut water, but I'll take that over not having, it's better to have that color than to not have to put the coconut water in. So I'll squeeze the lime right in. And because the soup is so big, I already know I'm probably going to use the whole lime. Typically I use a spoon to just really get out. I do this thing where I just stick the spoon in and I just rotate. And it gets it all in, gets as much juice out. Okay. Let's taste just to, I know we're coming up upon time, so people are welcome to ask questions as I do these final touches. As you can see, it's already starting to cloud the broth, but I'm happy to answer questions as we're just kind of in the final stages here. Yeah, it's definitely going to need the other half, but the sour really kind of rounds everything out. Up until that point, it's kind of like a sweet and salty soup with chicken. It's actually not that spicy. So the chili pepper I chose was a pretty weak chili pepper, but I'm okay. I'm totally okay with that. If you are more adventurous or still in the prime of your spicy eating, feel free to add more chili peppers. I would say 1 to 3 is my usual, but I'm just going 1 these days.
And our viewers would like to know what other recipes are in the book that you would highly recommend, especially for someone who's never tried Thai food before.
Okay, so well, the kind of food, there are some classics in there like pad Thai, but I tried to emphasize food that people would never even see on a restaurant menu. So because my family is Thai Chinese, like actually probably most of my family on both sides is a particular kind of Chinese called Taju or Tiao Chow. A lot of it is influenced by that. So there's actually like a chow fun with gravy, but a Thai version of that. So instead of Chinese flavorings, there's fish sauce. So that if you have Cantonese food in your background, that might be fun to play with, because there's also another recipe that's egg noodles with char siu, the red barbecue pork, but with Thai flavorings in it. So those are fun. And the first thing that I feel like most Thai kids learn how to cook in the kitchen is like the most basic Thai fried omelet. It's so plain that I can't even call it Thai, but it's just like quintessential to most Thai households. It's literally a flat, instead of scrambling your eggs, it's just a flat fried omelet with fish sauce or soy sauce in it. I mean, it can't get more simpler than that, but it's a pairing to many of the dishes that are in there. So if you're kind of like over the curries, like a lot of curries are well known in Thai restaurants, but want something less vibrant, but still quite good. And I think it lends well to the Bay Area just because how much Southern Chinese cuisine there is here, that it would just add a little bit of a spin to those flavors. So the char siu over egg noodles is very popular. There's the chow fun with gravy recipe, the Thai version of beef noodle soup. That's quite an operation. And for the more advanced cooks, I've only seen restaurants serve this as their special because it's quite time intensive. There's kind of like a fish curry custard that I make in a banana leaf bowl that's steamed. And if you like curry but want something lighter, fancier, it's kind of like a curry souffle almost. So that's probably the toughest, the most ambitious recipe in my book. So those are my favorites. But I mean, of course, they made it into the book because they're all my favorite. And I would recommend that anybody who is doing that to also read the recipe in my book, but look on YouTube. I mean, we're doing this because it's so helpful to learn cooking visually.
Yes, and I'd like in your intro of your book, you said to rely on your instincts, regarding your ingredients and your measurements. So that's something important to keep in mind.
Yeah. I'm just gonna start plating. Are there any other questions coming through?
Just one more is like, oh, someone wanted to know if you remove the kaffir lime leaves before serving.
No, I serve it with it, but actually I don't eat it myself. I know some people who really love chewing on it because it's such a strong flavor. It's not a very chewable leaf, I find. But I know people who chew it. I'm sure it's very nutritious if you did, but I personally don't. I eat around it, but I don't remove them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm gonna start plating. And I guess, the clouding broth, it just comes with the territory of squeezing citrus into, I want there to be a shrimp. Squeezing citrus into a soup, but that's what it is. So let me kind of get all the unsightly stuff out of the way. So this is tom yum, and tom yum, like I said, it's not a soup that's eaten alone. It pairs with rice and then probably a ton of other, it's like a full family spread. So you'd have it with other things. But it's a soup that you don't eat out of the soup bowl. You actually spoon it over the rice. But I'm gonna garnish with some scallions and cilantro. I know, and this is the part I always feel bad about because then I eat it and then everybody's watching and it's just kind of sad to have me eat and not have you share. It's so anticlimactic. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining and tuning in and being so willing to, to just dive in and cook. But
that looks amazing. And
thank you.
Let us know how we can follow your culinary adventures.
Yeah, I think you've done a great job of adding some links in. So I'm just gonna add my link tree for folks if they want to kind of follow my work. As in my bio, I do a bunch of things, but my artistic work, there are ways you can get my newsletter.
Oh, that's great. And follow you.
I'm going to be putting out new writings during the summer. Some of them will include other non-Thai recipes of other things that I cook. Mm-hmm. And you can follow me on Instagram, all the various Asian arts I do. This is kind of the home for it. Cooking is one of my main avenues, but again, I'm also a martial artist. I'm a writer. I'm also a Thai dancer. So this is kind of just the home of all of the arts that I practice.
Great. We have all the links coming up now, where to buy your cookbook and where to follow you. And you have that amazing blog you wrote too.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing. And thank you so much for inviting me. This has been such a pleasure.
Yes, thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, VC, for showing us that delicious recipe and sharing your stories. And thank you, everyone.
I actually feel really bad that nobody can.
No, we're there in spirit.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you so much
us tonight. Yes, please check out San Mateo County Library's upcoming author talks at smcl.org/author talks. We'd also appreciate if you could tell us how SMCL did with this program at smcl.org/rate this event. Okay, have a great night, everyone. Thank you so much, VC.
Thank you so much ขอบคุณค่ะ
สวัสดีค่ะ